And we're going to record this, sorry. Okay, so we're going to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land for sustaining us and for providing us with the necessities of life. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty and the two Rau Wampum Treaty, which emphasizes the importance of joint stewardship, peace, and respectful relationships. As we reflect on land acknowledgements, let us remember that we are all stewards of the land and of each other. We recognize the land on which we gather has been and still is the traditional territory of several Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Since time immemorial, numerous Indigenous nations and Indigenous peoples have lived and passed through this territory. Sheridan affirms it is our collective responsibility to honor the land as we honor and respect those who have gone before us, those who are here, and those who have yet to come. We're grateful for the opportunity to be learning, working, and thriving on this land. So again, welcome to this workshop. My name is Besma. I work at Sheridan EDGE, which is Sheridan College's entrepreneurship hub. For those of you who might be not very familiar with the college itself, we are a polytechnic that's been around for 60 plus years with campuses in the cities of Mississauga, Brampton, and the town of Oakville, providing certificates, diplomas, degrees, and postgraduate certificates. So that's a little plug for Sheridan itself. And EDGE is the entrepreneurship hub at Sheridan. And we are a vibrant community of people from all backgrounds and walks of life who believe entrepreneurship can make lasting change in society. We support change makers as they explore entrepreneurial approaches to creating a more equitable and sustainable world. EDGE is open and provides services to both the Sheridan community and the general public. So as mentioned, based on the registration, a lot of the attendees today are not affiliated with Sheridan. So that's not an obstacle for you to access the supports and services at EDGE. It is open to everyone, even if you're not affiliated with the college. And what we provide is a combination of helping founders grow ideas and ventures that support a triple bottom line approach of people, planet, and profit. So what that means is if you are someone with an idea that you think will help a specific group of people or supports the environment in any way or anything, planet related, we want to work with you and support that idea, and as a way to give back beyond just the profit piece. So we offer mentorship, learning programs, inclusive community, co-working space, and access to funding opportunities. So I was mentioning space a few minutes ago. So we do have co-working spaces, which are spaces for individuals to come and work out of. So we have a space in Sheridan's campus in Mississauga, which is across the street from Square One Mall for those of you in Mississauga. We also have a space in the Brampton campus at Davis. That's a Davis campus in Brampton, the other way around, which is not open to the public yet, should be open to the public sometime in the fall. And we will have space in Sheridan's third campus in Oakville sometime next year. So right now, if you are in Mississauga or close to Mississauga and you would like to come into the space and check it out, work out of it, we are open currently to the public Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for the summer. And yeah. So we also, given that we're part of the college, we connect Sheridan students to opportunities to learn and work with startups. So for those of you in the crowd who are with the college, if you're students, we do have programs specifically for students that we'll touch on later on in the workshop. And we collaborate with community partners to support impact entrepreneurs in the region. So we do all our work in collaboration with other spaces in the area that we work in. So today's topic involves the entrepreneurial mindset and change making. But before we kind of start talking more about them, wanted to see what folks think about the entrepreneurial mindset in the first place. What do you think it is? So if you want to drop in the chat or even take the mic and speak. What do you think the entrepreneurial mindset is? Oh, I can't see the chat. Hold on, I forgot about this little thing. Okay, let me take this over. Being innovative, okay. Making a difference. Making change. A way of creating positive change in the world with new ideas. Delvin, you have your hand up.
Oh yeah, Sukhman stole that. I'm kidding. I was gonna say, I think the entrepreneurial mindset and change making, they go hand in hand. It's kind of like I feel like there's a lot of risk and uncertainty, but it's having a vision for creating social impact and then looking for ways of how you can create that impact, maybe even if you aren't sure. And I think that's what the EDGE Hub will help with if you're not sure.
Delvin is already an EDGE advocate, so thank you. Jay is saying providing something new needed to life. Okay, so it's interesting because a lot of what's being said relates to the next question. What is change making? So what is change making? What do you think it is? And again, there's no right and wrong question right now. Answer, sorry. Change making is the action required to make the idea a reality. Improving things in society for others. Anyone else? Okay, well, we'll talk more about what is change making. Taking creative solutions to solve a problem. Okay, so if you noticed, if you look at the chat, there is a connection between the two, which I didn't think will happen naturally in the chat, but I'm glad it did. Sukhman is saying change making is recognizing problems and finding ways to solve them. Okay, so yeah, so there's already intersections being formed in the chat, which is great. So we'll start with talking a little bit about kind of the elements of the entrepreneurial mindset before going into change making and then tying the two. So what is the entrepreneurial mindset? It's a set of skills that enable people to identify and make the most of opportunities, overcome and learn from setbacks, and succeed in a variety of settings. So as you can see in the definition, and I mean, this is one of many definitions, but there's no mention of business. There's no mention of profit. There's no mention of, the stereotypical things that might come into mind when someone hears the word entrepreneurship. So the mindset is about making the most of opportunities, identifying opportunities, learning from setbacks, responding to those setbacks in different ways. So what are the elements involved in the entrepreneurial mindset? So I'm just, now that I can see, I realize I can see the chat. Now I'm looking at the chat. So what are the elements involved in the entrepreneurial mindset? And the problem is now, with me not seeing the screen, the other screen, is I can't see my notes and I don't remember what the icons stand for. But the first one is growth mindset. So growth mindset is having, being open to learning and growing. And I need this to stop moving as quickly. So learning and growing and being always open to continuously learn from whatever you deal with, whatever goes wrong. It really takes you out of that, like if something goes wrong or like you don't go into the failing mode or failing forward, as they say. I think I'm going to stop sharing for a second because this is moving a little bit too quick for me. And because I admitted, I don't remember what the other icons stand for. So entrepreneurial mindset taught me to be honest. So the second icon is comfort with risk and the unknown. And what I'm going to actually do, give me 1 second. This is what happens when you get used to, part of the entrepreneurial mindset is finding solutions on the spot. Okay, so we're gonna go back. Okay, so we said the first one is growth mindset. Second element, and again, this is one of many elements. It's these are not the only elements, but if we start going through everything, we'll be here till tomorrow morning possibly. So the second element is being comfortable with the unknown, with risk. So if you think, I'm just gonna take them all out, sorry. If you think of just the past 2 years and how much unknown we all had to deal with, how much, risk companies and entrepreneurs and, people involved in all sizes of businesses and organizations, there was a lot of unknown that came up. And I mean, a lot of us are still dealing with some unknown, even though, things are starting to open up again. And there's the summary, excuse me. Yes, and coming out of, post-COVID, as they're referring to the current time. So stepping out of your comfort zone, needing to take initiative as part of getting comfortable with risk and getting comfortable with the unknown, and looking at risk in a calculated way. So what that means is risk is not something that we can really avoid sometimes, but you can minimize the impact. Maybe you can try to deal with things in a more calculated way, and research plays a big role in that. So often when I'm talking to students who are interested in entrepreneurship and starting new ideas, and they always jump into, well, I need X amount of dollars, and I need, like, they jump into resource thinking basically. And then they get scared. They scare themselves away because they are thinking of all the risks that can come with that and the potential failure. And so doing research about your idea, about whatever you want to do first, and really getting to know more about whatever it is that you want to do. And this applies to entrepreneurship and non-entrepreneurship, by the way. So even if you're considering, and I know a lot of the crowd is under 29, so you're either students or recent graduates, you might be fresh out of school, maybe you're considering going back to do more school, or you're deciding what kind of sectors you want to work in. You're trying to figure things out. So researching and talking to people and kind of finding more information about things will minimize that risk. And then, that comes with having a strategy, would be creating a strategy in the process, because once you have more information, you have more clarity about what you want to do, and that would allow you to decide on what steps you want to take. And surrounding yourself with mentors. So research doesn't just come from, Googling things, and looking at books and research in the traditional sense. But it's also from talking to people. So, I'll take Delvin as an example, since she already put herself out there. So Delvin, for example, Delvin and I met in a workshop last year or a while ago. And then at one point she asked questions about certain things, and she reached out, she's like, do you have time to talk? I have questions about XYZ. And then we met. So, sometimes it's like, okay, there's this, someone who might be working in an area I'm interested in. Let's, connect with that person to learn about whatever it is that we're interested in. And hopefully that was helpful, but Delvin, it's helpful to have someone to use as a live example. Sorry, I'm going back to growth mindset because I forgot that I had these slides in the first place. So growth mindset, just another thing to add to the growth mindset piece is trying new things. And that relates to the risk, the calculated risk piece is that sometimes when you can't decide on what to do or what you want to deal with, it's important to be open to trying new things. And maybe in a calculated way, so you don't have to you don't have to drop a job or drop out of school to go after something. It's always best to minimize the risk, to do the calculated risk that we were talking about, to approach things little bits and pieces. So you don't have to go full force into whatever it is. So you can volunteer. You can, if you do want to, if you have an idea that you really want to create change in, there are some ways that you can start doing that, step by step, which we'll talk more about in the next few slides. And then valuing the process over the results. So that also minimizes the whole thinking of things as failure, which will come up in a couple of slides, actually. Being persistent. So working through your failures, failure is not something that we can avoid. And if you think about it from an entrepreneurship perspective, someone who's taking an idea and starting something from scratch and working on it, failure is not something we can really avoid. But especially for entrepreneurs, it's part of the game. It's part of doing that you're going to have to test things and see how they go, and learn from that. So being aware of that, kind of setting your expectations and working through your failures, kind of failing forward, as they say, and looking at what worked and what didn't work. So creating solutions in the process, not just about what it is that you're working on, but also about yourself. Constantly being persistent with something and being reflective creates self-awareness of like, okay, so I'm very passionate about this idea. I really want to do something about it. I want to create change in that area, but I keep failing. So kind of analyzing, is it the idea? Is it your approach? Is it what's missing? If you were to think about it as almost as an equation to figure out what would get you to the other side. And then obviously you're applying grit in the process and being confident in your ability and potential. So that relates to the self-awareness piece that I just spoke about, and being optimistic and future oriented. Resourcefulness. So I kind of started touching on that a couple of slides ago about, there's your network and the knowledge that you would get from researching and reading about certain things. But there's also getting to know your skills. What your skills are, your main resource. If you want to create change, if you want to start something from scratch, before getting into the whole piece of like, I need money or I need this resource or that resource. You are your main resource. So kind of reflecting about your own skills, your own abilities, what do you already have underhand that you can directly use, or what skills you already have that will help you, and what's missing. What are the things that you identify as essential that maybe you need to work more on? So starting there with your skills and knowledge. And then also looking at your direct network, the people you already know, that maybe they're not the ones that would get you, like they're not the last stop before getting to whatever it is that you want to achieve, but maybe they know someone that would. And remember that everyone is connected somehow. Like there's 6 levels of connection with a lot of people out there. So I mean, one time when I thought of that, I was 2, and this is a few years ago, but I think I was 2 connections away from Obama. And when I realized that, I'm like, oh, that sounds a lot closer. Obama sounds a lot closer than I thought. And then the ability to utilize all of them to be successful. So it's one thing to have the resources and to know these things, but it's how do you use them? So I think sometimes sometimes we think that, oh, this person is so lucky, they have this network, or maybe like their dad is the CEO of this, or they have like access to a lot of resources, and, they have it easy. It's one thing to have the resources, and it's another thing to know how to utilize them to be successful. So it's the combination of the two. So think of your own resources first. Creativity and innovation. So ideating without filtering. So, a few of you mentioned being creative and being innovative in the chat when we first spoke about the questions. And sometimes people kind of tend to filter too quickly. So when you're thinking, we're trying to think creatively, when you're trying to, part of applying the entrepreneurial mindset is initially you just want to ideate. You just want to throw like whatever it is. Like, so if you have a problem or you have a challenge that you want to work on, you don't want to filter initially. You just want to kind of pop it all out of your head, put it on a piece of paper or on a Word doc or whatever works for you. Or like if you're more of a visual person, having pictures that relate to whatever the idea is, whatever works. Again, there's no right and wrong in how you do it, but not filtering too quickly. And then taking different perspectives, because that's what happens in the process, that you are considering different perspectives, looking at things from how would maybe a high school student versus college university student versus a young adult, or like a young professional versus a senior, like how do those people look at the idea or look at that challenge? How would they approach it? So taking those different perspectives would help you identify what's referred to as target market in the business lingo. Because once you start considering that, then you start to kind of think of like, okay, so seems like, I'm really focusing on young people 15 to 29. For example, well, what are their interests? And even 15 to 29 is a big gap, because 15 you're still in high school, 29 you're out of school and working. So even that, so let's say 25 to 29. Okay, 25 to 29, they're out of school probably, or wrapping up school. Maybe they're doing graduate studies. They're young professionals. Maybe they're starting to form families. What would their interests be? Would they be interested in this challenge that I want to work on? Would they be interested in coming in and creating change in this area with me? And so in the process, as you get to know your people better, you are creating connections. You start to create connections because you get to know, you start to identify who you want to work with. And then you want to do this, you want to get into a process, you want to get into a habit with this kind of thing, where the more you do it, like anything, it becomes second nature, where you start ideating without even trying to ideate. So ideas start to pop in your mind naturally. And solutions, you start, you get better in finding solutions to whatever challenges. So don't stop yourself, don't filter, and you want to, but you also don't want to get stuck in the ideation phase. So eventually you're going to have to execute, and then test whatever it is that you're executing, and then get feedback, and then go back and revise. So failing forward, we already spoke about failure. So embracing failure, seeing it as a new opportunity. So that's part of the growth mindset that we mentioned earlier. Investing in yourself. So seeing failure as a lesson instead of failure. Like, so not something that you stop and you just, life ends, or, the thing ends there. But taking it as an investment, that, okay, well, I failed. I learned from this failure. It's a type of investment in myself. So whatever resources or time that went into it, it's an investment in myself, because I'm learning from it, and it's those lessons will help me in the future. So you want to pause, reflect, and evaluate when you fail. But the most important thing is you eventually bounce back and persist. And it's okay if you're stuck in this for a little bit, like, sometimes people, I think where we get too hard on ourselves, and it's like, I didn't bounce back in 2 days, like there's something wrong with me. Again, it's part of being self-aware of who you are, what your circumstances are. If someone was able to bounce out of the same exact situation, 2 months more quickly than you did, yes, maybe both of you are dealing with the same situation, but you're not the same people. You don't have the same circumstances. So as long as you persist and you learn from it, that's really what matters. Being flexible and adaptable. So in the process, you're going to learn a lot. You have to be ready to change actions and plans. Because part of that growth mindset and the learning process, and not giving up and focusing on the big picture instead of the details that went wrong, or the connections that didn't go through for whatever reason. And in the process, you're applying emotional intelligence. That's part of the self-awareness, the growth mindset, knowing yourself and your resources and your strengths and weaknesses, and knowing how to use that to work with other people. Okay. So now that I've been speaking for, I don't know how long it's been, it's already 6:35. So next question for you is, how can the elements of the entrepreneurial mindset be used to influence change? Now that we touched on the different elements, how do you think they can be utilized to influence change? So again, you can take the mic, or you can drop it in the chat. I see there's been things in the chat, just I haven't read them. So any thoughts on the question? Are you pondering? So Jessica says, gives you confidence in yourself to make that change. Yes. You can use these 7 skills and apply them to making change. Okay, how though? Like what would you, so there's the confidence piece. How can something like, let's say being creative and innovative, how does that help you with change?
You can approach a problem creatively. So let's say you need to take out the garbage and you don't want to take out the garbage the traditional way. You can invent a pulley system and have the garbage taken out of your house, as an example.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like that idea. We're already ideating. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else?
Like on the same topic, like on that same idea, you can, if one invention doesn't work, you use persistence and resourcefulness to come up with another invention to make it work. And you're risking your own comfort by potentially embarrassing yourself with an invention that doesn't work. And then the growth mindset is you approach the problem with, okay, I have this problem. How can I overcome these challenges? And then you ideate or come up with all kinds of different brainstorming ideas. And then if you fail, you try again, and you kind of utilize all of these skills and take components out of them to solve a problem.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned embarrassing yourself, or being okay with and maybe it's like, embarrassing sounds a little bit too negative, but being okay basically with not having the right thing or the right solution or the right description right away, and being okay with all of that. So thank you, Stephanie. You can also use your network to test ideas and obtain feedback. Yes, so you do want to, so as mentioned in one of the previous slides, kind of sharing that feedback, because that's how you would be able to see how different people from different perspectives see things. Okay, so we're going to move along. So thank you for that. So change making, if we were to put a definition to it, Changemaker is one who takes creative action to solve a social problem. Changemakers not only have the intention to create change, but the motivation to act. So that's where the elements of the entrepreneurial mindset come into play, because you are applying that innovation, being innovative, being creative, as we discussed, and Stephanie shared some examples, having that growth mindset and persistence piece, to not only come up with the idea, but to also do something about it. Now, all of this starts with something that sounds simple, but doesn't get applied often. So this begins by having empathy for others, identifying a specific problem or opportunity to tackle, and giving oneself permission to do something about it. Doesn't stop there. A change maker keeps trying until they have made a difference. So it really starts with empathy. I think we can all be empathetic. So sometimes, creating change doesn't like, I mean, yes, ultimately there's systems that need to be changed, and politics that come into play and all of that stuff. But we can all be change makers by simply putting ourselves in the shoes of other people. And so what we're talking about for the next few slides, but before we do that, we have a question or two questions maybe. I'm just worried about the time. So we'll do this one question, we'll skip the next one. So now that we kind of identified change, what are some, or change making or change makers, what are some issues in your community, whether it's the small community, like, so maybe you're just your direct family, or your larger community, that you think require a change maker? So pop in whatever comes into mind into the chat. I'll just read them pretty quickly. So homelessness, electricity wastage, promoting mental mental well-being, sorry. Promoting mental well-being for adults. Throwing food in the garbage, grocery stores and homes. One area that, I mean, this is not something I am working on, at least not officially, but something, an area that a friend of mine saw requiring change was lack of a network and professional knowledge, especially for women from marginalized communities. So I have a friend who created a whole project, a whole organization actually around that problem that she realized is something that, and she kind of picked on that from her work and her conversations with different people. Financial stress for international students, yes. Okay, so we're going to keep going just because it's 6:42 and I want to leave us some time at the end for questions. So pathways to change. So like I said, there are different layers of what a change maker looks like and what they can do. But one path, and the first one is empathy, empathizing with other people, trying to just understand them. You'll be surprised. Sometimes I remember in a previous job that I had with a certain community, part of the training that myself and whoever else was involved got at the time, was that sometimes it's when we think of someone needing help or a community needing help, that we think of resources. We have to give them information, we have to give them pamphlets, we have to give them access to money or to whatever it is. Not that all of that is not needed, but at the time I remember something that stuck with me and I stayed with me since it's been a few years since then, is just listen. Just listen to that person. People just want someone to listen to them, to feel like they're being heard, basically. So empathizing, just kind of getting, and this also opens up doors to knowledge that that's not coming from Google and not coming from books. It's coming directly from human being. Volunteering. So if you want to take it a step further, working with that community or for that cause that you're passionate about. Because now it's like, okay, I hear you, I see you, I want to do more, but maybe I don't have certain resources to help, like financially, for example, or I'm not a politician who can change a system to deal with the homelessness issue, for example. You can volunteer, and it could be once in a while, it could be regularly. It's up to you to decide. Being a champion, so eventually then maybe you volunteered, but then after that you're gathering groups you're trying to get other people to come together and work on that cause. So now it's not just you're trying to expand that effort to other people. Eventually being an activist, speaking out about the topic or about the cause, educating other people, raising awareness about that topic, because you've already gone through these steps where now you're like, I know what it's like for that community, or I know what it's like for that cause. I have more information. So it could be like, let's say, something related to the environment, being aware of the harm that we've done as humans to the environment over decades. So raising that awareness, being an activist in the area. Being an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is someone who applies the entrepreneurial mindset while working for someone else. So you're not working for yourself, you're working within an existing organization or an existing company, but you're creating change from the inside. You're coming up with new solutions to problems and challenges that you became aware of. So sometimes you might be an employee in a certain organization already, and you're seeing gaps, you're seeing issues, and there are a lot of examples that popped up, especially during COVID, because employees of existing employees of companies, they were faced with new challenges, so they had to think of things pretty quickly for those challenges. So that's innovating and applying the entrepreneurial mindset. You're basically finding new products, new solutions based on this new challenge or problem that you're dealing with. Being a social entrepreneur. So social entrepreneurship is kind of in the middle between a traditional business and a charity or not-for-profit, where you might still be selling, like there might still be a profit aspect to whatever you're doing. So maybe you're still selling a product or providing a service for a fee, but the social piece and the cause is embedded into whatever it is that you're doing. So quick example is for example, a coffee shop that sells muffins and cookies and whatever else coffee shops sell, but they hire individuals from a certain community that they know that these individuals will have a hard time finding employment for whatever reason it is. So focusing, like providing them training specifically for them, and helping them out in that way. Okay. And then next is social innovator. So applying that innovation piece, the being creative, the being resourceful, but to for social purposes and social causes. So, coming up with new ideas. So it's not necessarily creating an enterprise or organization out of it, but being, focusing on that aspect of it. And then eventually, if you're able to fund, and again, this doesn't mean, like putting millions of dollars into it, but, helping with whatever you can when you are able to. So sometimes we can't do the work ourselves, but maybe, for some, they might have the means to support others who are doing that work. And then policy making, which is trying to create to create change across more people. And a wider range. So there we go. Okay, so Erica's pasting I have more extensive notes that I don't see. But social innovators, since Stephanie spoke about that specifically, so creating new strategies, products, or ideas that address social issues. So an example. So so
like paper straws instead of plastic straws?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's dealing with the environmental piece.
Mhm.
So I mean, whoever, made paper straws work, and if they were doing it because they were passionate about an environmental cause, for example, and then try to take that to the next level by like talking to all the restaurants and the places that sell plastic straws and telling them, like advocating that, straws, like research says that, straws are harming the environment in XYZ ways. I've created straws, or like you can create your own straws kind of thing. So yes, that's an example. Thank you. And Marisol just pasted a link with a lot more examples. Thank you. Okay. And I think, okay, good. We're almost there because I want to keep a few minutes for questions. So creating a culture of change making. So in the process, if you realize, if you kind of think of the different examples that we just spoke about, you're creating an environment that enables a bottom-up meets top-down approach that brings people together, regardless of seniority, to reflect and learn from each other. So again, you don't have to be a VP in some corporation to influence change. And I think that's sometimes a lot of people think of like, well, who am I? What can I do? I am one person. And it's true. I mean, like, the more people, the better, but it has to start somewhere. And if you remember, if you've seen that video of the dancing man, or it's I know it's popular on YouTube, I don't remember the proper title, of someone just getting up and starting to dance. And then they get one person who joins them into the dance. And then all of a sudden it's like 10 more people and 100 more people. It's just starting somewhere. You just got to start somewhere. And that's part of the entrepreneurial mindset of you got to, it does take guts to start something from scratch, whether it's for a business purpose or for a social cause. But it is bringing people together regardless of seniority, reflecting and learning from each other. And then the members, the group, adopting a mindset of possibility and are empowered to leverage their skills for positive social impact. So bringing our knowledges together, bringing our resources together to create positive impact. So that's that in terms of the topic itself, but I'm just gonna tell you a little bit more about ways to engage with EDGE before opening it up to any questions. And this is just kind of what's easily accessible for the summer, which is a little bit quiet on our end. So Explore, we have a program called Explore, which is specifically for students interested or curious about the entrepreneurial skills, knowledge, and mindset. So this is more for, if you're someone who is still in the curiosity phase, like you don't have an idea necessarily that you want to work on, but you want to learn more about the entrepreneurial mindset and ideation and change making, to use those either to, for you to start your own venture or your own project, or to do kind of side hustle kind of thing, or to just use that mindset in working in an existing space. This would be a good program to just provide you that introduction. It is an asynchronous program, so it's kind of do at your own pace, very flexible in terms of doing it. And Erica pasted the link in the chat if you're interested in registering. It is unfortunately currently only open to Sheridan students, but we are hoping to make it available outside of Sheridan too. We do have a bunch of other programs that are getting revamped actually over the summer. So if you are interested in getting to know about programming in the future, We'll have our Social Impact Catalyst program, which you can sign up to be on the waiting list for. And that's a program that's funded by RBC Future Launch. And it's specifically for youth 29 and under. That's how RBC defines youth. I'd like to think youth is, we're all useful regardless of our age, whether you're 29 or above. And so that's something you can sign up for if you are interested, specifically if you have an impact or social impact related idea that you want to get more supports and learning for. So you can sign up to get to know when we open up applications again. You can also sign up for our newsletter. So we will have a bunch of more public facing events over the summer. So events that you can attend, connect with the speakers that we'll have over the summer. So for example, we'll have one on prototyping. We'll have another one about Indigenous approaches to entrepreneurship, just to mention a few. So if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll be in the loop of what's coming up. And then far away from now, but something if you're really, really interested, you can save the date for now, but you'll get more details in the newsletter as we get closer to the date, is our Youth Changemaker Summit. So this is also part of the Social Impact Catalyst program that I just mentioned, but that one you don't have to be youth 29 and under to attend. It's a way to connect with participants from who went through our Social Impact Catalyst program, but also a way to connect with other influencers and other people who are working in a similar space. So it'll be a good networking and showcase event that will be happening in November. So you can save the date, and the plan is to have it in person. Even today, actually, we wanted to do it in person, and then things happened. We shifted to online, but we're hoping to have more in-person events soon, and hopefully get to see some of you in person. And that's how you can stay in touch with EDGE through social media and our websites. So we are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and our website is edge.sheridancollege.ca. And I'll stop sharing and open up the floor for any questions about anything. So again, mic or chat, whatever you're comfortable with. I stopped sharing, right? You don't see my screen anymore, right? Okay. Yes, any questions about anything discussed in the presentation or anything related? I'm just gonna skim through the chat in case I missed anything. No questions? Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
So sometimes when you're trying to be creative, I feel like there's a little bit of pressure, if that makes sense. Like, how do you know your idea is creative? So what are some strategies you would recommend for, because I know you talked about a few, which was kind of like not to judge your idea and do it freely, but like, what are some ways you can get inspired to be in your creative zone, if that makes sense?
So how to get into the creative zone, or how to evaluate your the ideas? Okay, I think Delvin froze. So if it is, and hopefully she can still hear us, if the question is about getting into the creative zone or being creative, you just got to start somewhere. So like I was explaining, it's like no one's gonna come up with $1 million ideas right away. You have to start somewhere. So there is no bad idea. You just kind of have to strengthen that ideation muscle. So one way, and this is actually an exercise that's in Explore, for those of you who have gone through Explore. One way is to, so creating kind of 3 columns or 3 pages or 3, whatever you want to do. And in one, listing global trends that are happening. So for example, working from home, but I'm pretty sure there are more global trends than just working from home is very applicable to me right now. So whatever global trends, like kind of just watch the news or look on Twitter, see whatever global, or the war on Ukraine, or I don't know if that's a trend. I mean, hopefully that's not a trend. That's a bad example, but you get the idea, like something, a trend. TikTok, when TikTok first came up, that was like a trend. Now it's the thing. So one column list global trends, second column list actions that you have to do, and relate to the trend, by the way, just actions that you have to do or a company has to do. So turning on the lights, taking the bus or taking public transportation, and so on. And then in the third column, trying to create new ideas by linking one thing from column one and one thing from column two, and trying to make sense out of it. And not necessarily like you're not writing a paragraph out about whatever it is. But for example, if the, so I said working from home, and let's say something I like in column two is around turning on, I just had something and it escaped my mind. Using your phone. This is a bad example. I have better examples in there. But basically like automating, getting your phone to automate certain work meetings, for example, or getting, these are really bad examples, but basically creating a connection, or like a trend, for example, is artificial intelligence and virtual reality. So that's a trend, and something in the second column about using your phone. So how can you use your phone? Is there something that could be added to the phone that would provide access to, that would allow, for example, people who are working from home or students that are studying from home because of COVID, that, using their tablet or their phone or whatever is more easily accessible thing that they have, technology that they have to learn through virtual reality. Like that could be a new service. So again, I mean, I don't do it enough, which is why my example was not very good, but if you do it more often, you'll get better at it. Any other questions? I don't know if that answered your question, Delvin, because I felt like there were two parts to it.
Oh, no, that answered my question, because I think I'm creative, but sometimes I feel stuck and I'm like, is this actually creative or is it a appropriate solution? But I feel like the setup of the three sections kind of helps you see like, okay, you're just divergently thinking first and then you look for that connection at the end. So I think this is kind of like a cool system. I like it. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions before we wrap up? We're already a couple of minutes over time. Okay, so if there are no questions, hopefully this was a useful workshop. We already pasted how you can be in touch with us, how you can stay in the loop with what we're doing. You're also welcome to, if you do have questions that pop up later on, you can email edge@sheridancollege.ca and connect with us if you would like to, if you do have any questions or would like to connect one-on-one later on. Thank you so much for joining tonight, and we will send you the, I saw we're asking for the slides, so we'll email out the slides. Thanks so much. Good night.